All right, hello and good morning. This is video 936. It is April 8th, 2018. I put on a little bit of makeup. I took my daughter out. She's having fun with her friends. So I get a couple hours apiece. Um, and while I was out, we were out. My daughter's coffee shop hopping. Her friends like to go to coffee shops and share around, and they go to another coffee shop. Um, but while I was at the coffee shop, I looked over, as I'm watching the baristas make the coffee, and I looked over and um, above the doorway to the back, over the door, there was a cross, okay, Christian cross. And it's been a while since I've seen that. Um, growing up in a Catholic family, um, my grandma's house. So what it reminded me was my grandma. My grandma had a cross over every door in her house. Um, and it was one of those things that I looked at it and, I had just such a conflict of feelings. And I guess it's something that I want to talk about because I probably am not alone, and how I want to talk about this. Um, Over the last, I mean, shit, I've had trouble with religion for a long time. But in the last 10 years, we'll say, you know, religion has been weaponized um, in America against transgender people. I mean, it's probably the understatement of the decade, but I would say not currently, maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It was the kind of thing that I developed a response that if I saw someone wearing a cross, it immediately turned my stomach. I had been conditioned um, to associate the Christian cross with negativity, with hatred, um, with a lot of things based on the behavior that was done against transgender people under the guise of that cross. And, you know, when I was younger, um, I wanted to be a priest, believe it or not. I wanted to be a Jesuit priest, and I spent some time um, actually at a monastery. It was a Trappist monastery, um, and got asked by the some of the monks there, "Hey, you should join us," da da da. Da. And I mean, it would have been probably another false start to add to my collection of false starts in my life, but you know, I have felt there was a time in my life where I felt such a connection to an organized religion and a lot of positivity. And I mean, I kid you not, I, there was a time in my life when the idea of getting up and singing, I can't think, it's not a mass, it's not a chorus. There's something that the monks do. Um, I think they call it the hours, where they get together and they sing, they chant together. I mean, I felt the time that I spent at the monastery, um, contemplating, you know, I felt that power, positivity, vitality, for lack of a better word. There was magic there. There was absolutely magical energy there. Um, Community, togetherness, da 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 da. Okay. However, over 30 or 40, 20, 30 years, um, what once I would have seen as security, comfort, um, is totally changed about 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Definitely during Trump's presidency, I guess is all I can really say. Um, when I was in college, I can remember at Georgia Tech, every so often the Campus Crusade for Christ would come out, and they would have the pre book thumper Bible thumpers on the steps of the student union, and they'd be preaching their shit. And I didn't like them, not as a non-religious person, but at the time I was going to daily mass at the Catholic Student Center. Um, I was going to weekly mass. I loved going to mass every day. Um, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning every day, except Sundays and Saturdays. But I loved going to mass in the morning. There was no singing. But I followed. I had along with the Catholic year. It's 3 years, A, B, and C. It repeats A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. And the readings, you know what the weekly readings are, but there's daily readings too. And so, I was every day. I was, my Bible was used. Okay, not it wasn't pristine. It was the spine was bent, pages were bent because I used it. Prayed, I read it every day. I mean, kid you not. And I loved it. I loved the routine. It was like my daily recharge. And I almost called like the people on the Bible thumpers, I almost called them amateurs because they were interested in, maybe 10 to 20% of the Bible, where I was reading it every day and I loved it. I lived it. I loved it. Okay. So, over the course of 20 years, I've developed this PTSD emotional reaction that is so 180 from that, you know. It's so different to see a symbol and not associate that with the love and understanding. My relationship with Jesus was very deep and personal. And when I later at a different college, St. Augustine's in University of Florida, did the same thing, daily mass. Um, I spent my afternoons when it was open working in the soup kitchen, washing dishes. Okay, helping to cook, helping to load up to take to the soup kitchen to just I mean I lived it, you know, and I saw the good that it can do. But over the course of 20 years and then the last 10, it changed. I changed, you know, did the world change? And it was weaponized. Part of it was weaponized. You know. So now, when I see the cross, I don't. I see something I fear. You know, something that I saw and felt comfort in. Um, it's a total different feeling now. And I thought about how, again, it's almost like seeing a swastika, you know, and I don't realize that, obviously I think the owner of the coffee shop, um, it's their coffee shop, but I don't know, it almost makes me want to call their corporate headquarters and say, hey, um, and again, I feel like, what does that say about me? You know, here's someone takes pleasure or significance. It's symbolic to them. It's me. I would assume meaningful to them. They see it as maybe as I used to see it. Um, but my assumption now is that it's not that way. It is a Nazi flag. It is you know what I mean? It's a burning cross now. It's not it's the flag that you put on a black person's lawn and light on fire to scare them. Like I said, it's not a good symbol to me. It's not a good thing, but to someone else it can be. And so again, it's a business. It's kind of coffee crossing. Um, I don't know. I guess I just, you know, uh, flip that around. What if they put a pride flag up and someone complained? You know what I mean? If someone complained, like Heine Brothers here in Louisville, all of their places that has the safe place sticker and Black Lives Matter and then the pride flag and it says all are welcome. What if someone walked into the shop and saw that and said, that makes me uncomfortable. The pride flag makes me uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, is that the same equivalent? You know what I mean? Like, how can I be upset at someone else displaying their religion? How can I be upset at that when, if it was a pride flag and someone said, you need to take that down, that supports the gays? I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah, it supports the gays. What's wrong with supporting gay people? Could we flip that around from another way and say, well, what's wrong with supporting Christians? So I'm not quite figured this out. Um, but if I could go just a little bit further on this, I hope I haven't worn out my welcome here, my mat. But as a symbol of Christianity, if we could if we could take a vacuum cleaner and pull away all of the ways that Christianity has been used against gay people, against transgender, if we could take away the people that have weaponized it, if we could pull away those, take away the baggage, okay, and looked at it as it's actually, let's see, as it's actually written in the Bible. But if we could take Jesus's message of love one another, treat each other with respect, as you have done for the least among you, you have done for me. If we could take that idea of loving one another and helping each other out and being good people to each other, if we could take that message, that would be very supportive of diversity. That would be very supportive of transgender people. That would be very supportive of Jewish, well, Jesus was Jewish. Jewish people. That would be very supportive of gay people. That would be very supportive of helping out homeless people. That would be very supportive of, again, giving your money. If you have more than you need, sharing it. Um, it would address probably a lot of our social ills if we actually did what Jesus himself supposedly said to do. Not the way that it's been weaponized, but if we could take it at its root, okay? Take Jesus at his word. Um, could we encapsulate that and project that on the cross on the wall? In other words, as a transgender person in America, if you saw the cross on the wall, you would see it as a sign of safety. You would see it as a sign of love. You would see it as a sign of acceptance. You would feel safe. You know what I mean? Like, if we could take away, if we could do away with, if we could separate the bad people that have used it against us, could we take it as it is at its root and say, oh, thank goodness there's a cross over the door. They're going to accept me as a transgender person because that's what Jesus did. See what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not saying it very well. It's a hard sell. I mean, it really is, because I'm so accustomed now to, um, you know, all of the people that are anti-transgender right now. Your Marjorie Taylor Greens, your Lauren Boeberts, they're all women who wear crosses. You know what I'm saying? In other words, because it's a sign that's easy to do. Um, I have no doubt in my mind that if Jesus was here among us today, he would look at people that um, have made jewelry out of what he was killed on, and he would be looking and going, "What the hell? Why do you celebrate?" I mean, he would be like, "Donate that money to the poor. Feed your family." You know what I mean? Like it's such a sign of um the Old Testament. You shall have no other god before me. No idolatry. You know the in the desert. When Moses went up to the mountain and the people were like, "Oh, we're gonna let's melt all our gold and we're gonna make a golden calf." And the idea being is that's idolatry and you're putting it something else before me. Why the fuck have people done away with God for Christianity. Like I said, Jesus always talked about my Father, my Father. Jesus never said me. He never said worship me. He was the Father. You see what I'm saying? So that's, I mean, out of the box, it's already off the tracks. But again, back to that idea that the cross over the coffee shop. How do we can we get back into a state? Can I get back into a state that I can look at that and not feel offended or not feel like I'm going to be lynched or not be killed? Will that ever happen? It used to be I used to kind of just get angry and say something about Christians, and then I realized that it's not Christians. Um, it's people who use Christianity against you. Um, are they Christians? Well, in name, perhaps, but there are they're not Catholic. There are Christian churches that are accepting of gay. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's a fallacy to assume that just because you're a Christian, you hate transgender people. Unfortunately, I have been conditioned. I have been trained. It's a symbol that brings fear in my it brings a negative taste to me in my mouth as opposed to something that's positive. And again, at one time it was very positive. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps one day in the future. Um, the Ku Klux Klan had a thing where they were welcome in churches in America's past. And I almost wonder if the anti-transgender, anti-gay movement within some sects of Christianity, sects of Christianity, if those one day will become like the KKK, like we view the KKK, or there's a group of Aryan white supremacists who only welcome other white people in their churches. And so we say, well, that's racist. We look at it as a negative thing, and I'm wondering if a point will come in the future when each little fragment, you're going to have Catholics that hate gay people. You're going to have Presbyterians who hate gay people. You're going to have Lutherans who hate gay people. Now, not really. Every Lutheran church I've seen has a pride flag on it. Okay, but in each subset of Christianity, there's a pocket, that's going to be anti-gay. I wonder if they'll all kind of migrate together because, I mean, if where I live in Indiana, if you drive down the road 10 minutes, you're going to pass 20 churches. So there's always going to be a chance to find a congregation that believes as you do, uh, hating gay people. But at what point does it become, at some point, I would imagine it's going to become where whether haters are going to be in the minority, and they'll have to advertise. Like right now, churches have to advertise they're accepting. Let's take that 20 years in the future. The assumption is every church is going to be accepting. So the minority is going to be churches that don't. And they're going to have to advertise, we hate gay people. Gay people not welcome. The only parallel I can think of, imagine being in the South in 1962 or 66, and the pendulum has swung to where it's the law, and socially you have more and more social venues, restaurants that are integrated, and you're a person who doesn't want to see black and white people together. Well, the norm is going to be integration. So are you going to advertise, whites only? It becomes a negative thing, not a positive thing. And as generational, as every generation gets used to it and used to it and used to it, eventually no one's going to eat at your restaurant. You know what I mean? So then you go out of business or you change your mind. So from a religious point of view, I mean, and again, I can remember the parish that I was a scoutmaster at one point, believe it or not, and our parish, St. Patrick's, our parish was having an issue because the congregation was primarily older people. They couldn't get younger people to come to Mass because primarily Mass was senior citizens, and senior citizens were dying off, and therefore there was no money coming in. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things. If the current anti-gay is going to progressively get less and less and less and less and less, at some point it's going to change, to survive. Being anti-gay is not going to be a selling point. You know what I mean? So, food for thought. But when I saw that this morning, like I said, when I saw the cross, I had like three emotions back to back to back to back to back. And I'm not too sure. Like I said, I'm not too sure. And the company that I work for is not going to say walking the line, but trying to be non-confrontational. And I wonder, if I called the number here on the cup, it's an 888 number. I mean, I've seen these across the state. It's not a one-person operation. And I said, it's kind of like a Blue Lives Matter flag. I called the city. Our fire truck up here has on the back of it, when they go to the grocery store, like to have the fire truck. On the back of it, it has a Blue Lives Matter flag. And I called the city and I said, I'm kind of curious, why is that allowed? And they were like, what do you mean? I said, well, that's the new Confederate flag. They're like, oh, no, it's not. I said, no, yes, it is. And then, you need to do your research on it. As a taxpayer, you can't, I'm just saying. Now, granted, I live in Indiana, and, Indiana has issues, but again, you can't, I don't know. But it just made me think a little bit, and maybe some food for thought. I have a number of transgender friends who go to church. Like I said, they found an accepting church and they love it, and it gives them power and they feel good about it. And I mean, isn't that wonderful? I mean, that's what you want. You want your friends to be happy what they do. And I think again, as that more and more that expands, it really should be, it should be that when I see a cross, I shouldn't feel like my life's in danger. I should feel like that's safety because it's Jesus and Jesus loves me. See what I'm saying? It's been flipped, obviously, by Republicans and everything else, but at some point it's going to go, you know what I mean? It's going to go back. Jesus didn't have an asterisk. He said, love everyone. He didn't say, love everyone, but. All right, on that note, butts. Have a good. I got another one coming. I'm gonna make another video, but I want to get this one up. It's gonna be on something else. But good luck to you. Bye bye.